Hello dear students, welcome back to Pharmwise Academy. In our previous lecture, you have already studied about the transport across cell membrane where we have discussed about the active transport and passive transport. So now in this lecture, we are going to study about the cell and its organelles. Okay, so let's get started. So dear students, we have to study the unit topic which is the cellular level of organization. So what do we mean by a cell? Okay, what is the basic definition of the cell? The cell is it can be defined as the smallest structural and functional unit of life. Okay, the cell is the smallest structural and functional unit of life. Okay, what do you mean by it? For example, let us say the circulation in our body. Example, the blood circulation in our body. The blood circulation in our body is performed by an organ, a specialized organ, which is the heart. Okay, a particular function is performed by an organ. What is an organ? The organ is a group of tissues which are performing the similar function and have the similar structure. Okay, organ, it is a group of tissues. And what is a tissue? Tissue is a group of cells which are having the similar structure and they are performing a similar kind of function. That is the cell. So we have to go down to the last. Okay, the cell is the smallest unit. We cannot go further, we cannot bifurcate the cell. That's why the life of a living organism start at the cellular level. Therefore we are going to study about the human body from the cellular level. Okay, now next. Okay, I understood. I have to study about the cellular level. So if I have to study the cell, okay, what I have to study under the cell? I am here. You have to study first about its structure. Okay, if anyone says to you what is the cell, after definition you should describe how it looks. Okay, what is its structure, what is its size, and what it contains, how it looks like, what is its shape, etc, etc. Okay, so first thing you have to study under the structure is size of the cell. The size of the cell is 10 micrometer and not 10 millimeter. Okay, it's written wrong. 10 micrometer the size of the cell is. Okay, size of the cell is 10 micrometer. And the second point, there is a jelly like consistency fluid present inside the cell that we call as the cytoplasm. Okay, we can call it cytoplasm or cytosol. Cytosol is a jelly like consistency fluid which is present inside the cell wall, and inside this cytoplasm there are the various highly organized physical structures. Okay, there are highly organized physical structures which are suspended into the cytoplasm, and that we call as an organelle. Okay, so what do you mean by organelle? An organelle is a highly organized physical structure which is or dispersed into the cytoplasm of the cell. Okay, what are organelles? The basic thing. Okay, what are organelles? It could be mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus, chromatins, Golgi apparatus, vacuoles. So many organelles will be present inside the cell. Okay, these are, can you appreciate this? These mitochondria is present, nucleus is present, endoplasmic reticulums are there, Golgi apparatus are there, etc, etc. There are likewise many organelles present in our the cell. Now what how does its cell wall look like? The cell wall or cell membrane. Okay, it should be covering with a good protective layer, and that it has a cell membrane. The cell membrane, it is a semi permeable membrane. Okay, it is made up of phospholipid bilayer. Okay, for its protection, for covering of the cell, for covering the nucleus and its organelles, the cell contains the cell membrane or cell wall. The cell wall is a semi-permeable membrane which is made up of phospholipid bilayer and it is highly rigid. Okay. Now, I have studied the structure and what are its organelles and how it is covered, how it is protected. Okay. Now, inside the cell, various organelles are present. So, one by one, we can see that organelle. So, we are studying about the cell membrane. Okay. As I have already told you about this cell membrane in our previous lecture also, that is the transport across cell membrane. So I have told you that the cell membrane of the human cell is made up of the phospholipid bilayer. Okay, so how this phospholipid layer will be looking like? Okay, if take this phospholipid molecule. Okay, I'll show you, I'll make you a bigger diagram so that you can understand easily. Okay, I am making this. This is the polar head. The head will be polar and the chains are non-polar. Okay, let me make a diagram. This is, sorry, so attached to this the non-polar chain is present. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, here. Okay, and this ring is the saturated one. It is a saturated fatty acid and this one is the unsaturated fatty acid. Why it is unsaturated fatty acid? Because it contains a carbon-carbon double bond. Now in this polar ring, here the phosphate group is present. Here the double bond O, O minus, O attached, and about the substitution is present. And here attached to the oxygen, a glycerol molecule, a glycerol group will be attached. Okay, take your copies and note this structure. Okay, however it is not needed, but for your extra information I am providing it to you. Okay, here C double bond O and attached to this C double bond O. This is the roughly structure of a phospholipid molecule. So can you see this, that here the phosphate group is present, and to this, because of this phosphate group, the polarity, okay, this will be the polarity will be induced, and these are the fatty acids. Okay, and fatty acids are however non-polar in nature. So therefore our cell membrane is a polar molecule. The polar head is present and the non-polar tails are present. Okay, this polar head is hydrophilic. It is hydrophilic in nature, and these saturated fatty acids are hydrophobic in nature. Okay, it is the easy basic thing which can understand. Because of the presence of phosphate group, the polarity is induced, and when the polarity is induced, the hydrophobia, the hydrophilic, it gets means water loving. And the saturated fatty acids, these are the fatty acids. Okay, these are non-soluble in water, they are water eating, therefore it is the hydrophobic in nature. But the amazing thing, due to this polar and non-polar configuration and due to the presence of saturated fatty acids and glycerol molecules and carbohydrate molecules, it is semi-permeable membrane and it does not allow water soluble substances to pass through. Okay, the water soluble substances such as it may be your electrolytes, okay, sodium, potassium, calcium, etc., or it may be glucose or urea, etc. These are the examples of water soluble substances. So therefore the best example is glucose. Glucose cannot pass through the cell membrane. Okay, therefore your basic thing you have very familiar with that, insulin. Okay, what is insulin? Insulin is a chemical substance produced by the Langerhans cells of pancreas. Endocrine or exocrine, you have to tell me in the comment. Okay, insulin is produced by pancreas. Okay, which whether it is exocrine or endocrine, tell me in the comments. Now insulin, what does insulin do? The insulin is a basically carrier protein which carries the glucose, which allows the glucose to pass through this cell membrane. Okay, understood? So the insulin is a protein, it's a chemical substance which allows the transport or passage of glucose across the cell membrane. Therefore, in diabetes, what happens in the diabetic patients, the insulin resistance will be developed, okay, on the cell surface. Now the insulin, here on the cell membrane, the insulin receptors will be present, okay. The insulin receptors will be present, and these insulin receptors, when insulin is binded to these insulin receptors, these will open like how this protein channel is open, no, like that the insulin receptor will open, and through this the insulin will bind to the glucose, and likewise the glucose is transported inside the cell. Okay, this is clear. Now, okay, we have studied very much basics about the cell membrane. Is that everyone clear? The cell membrane is made up of the phospholipid molecule, phospholipid bilayer, okay, phospholipid molecules present, and along with the phospholipid molecule you can see the composition of the cell membrane. The proteins are 55% present, lipids are 42% present, and carbohydrates are 3% present. Okay, so now what are these carbohydrates? Because so far we have studied the proteins and lipids. Okay, we know that protein molecules are present that will act as the receptors, etc., and channels, etc., and lipids which are attached to the phospholipid molecule, etc., etc. Now, but what are the carbohydrates? The carbohydrates are these molecules. The carbohydrate is present because the carbohydrate will be mainly present in the form of either glycoprotein or glycolipid. It will be present in this form. Now, what is the use of carbohydrate? Okay, can anyone answer? Can anyone answer? Okay, let it be. The glycoprotein, the carbohydrate which is present in the form of glycoprotein or glycolipid, it gives the immunological identity of cell. Okay, mark it, students, it is the very important point. The carbohydrates which is present in the form of glycoprotein or glycolipid, it gives the immunological identity of the cell. What happens? What is meant by immunological identity? It means that it is helping in this cell signaling, and it helps to identify the cell. Okay, in the apoptosis, in the self destruction of the cell molecules, how will the killer cells identify the cell which has to be killed? That is because of the some receptors again, and that receptors, that receptor, that identity will be given by the carbohydrates to the cell. Okay, now the thickness of the cell membrane is 5 to 10 nanometer. Now, along with this, the cell membrane, inside the cell membrane there are two types of proteins present. One is integral protein and another one is peripheral proteins. Now, what is the role of these integral proteins and peripheral proteins? First, see the function of integral protein. What do you mean by integral protein? Okay, basic. These protein molecules which you can see, these are the protein molecules which is the which is acting as a ligand, which is acting as a gate, which is acting on a channel. Okay, protein channel is there. Okay, these are the basically integral proteins, but the main function I will say here, these are the integral proteins. It provides the coating to the cell membrane. Along with the coating, it is involved in the ion changing and carrier proteins. Okay, carrier proteins. In the last video I have said that the carrier mediated I have also said a topic which is carrier mediated transport. This is the point. Some molecules, the macromolecules which cannot penetrate through the cell membrane, by the help of these protein channels, by the help of these integral proteins, the carrier means the transport of that macromolecules could be done. Okay, this is the main function of the integral proteins. And also the integral protein has a very main function, that is it allows selective water soluble substances. Okay, it allows selective water soluble drugs or substances pass through the cell membrane. It can bypass the selective water soluble substances or drugs, okay, in and out of the cell, means transportation can occur. Now what is the role of peripheral proteins? The peripheral proteins are mainly the enzymes which is located inside the cell. Okay, these are the enzymes located inside the cell. And also the peripheral proteins are also important in the transport of molecules. Okay, it can also sometimes act like there is a pathway when a example is, it is a receptor A and the ligand is binded. So after this it does not show its action on the cell wall, but by the help of the activation of peripheral proteins, these go inside the nucleus. Okay, this is the nucleus. Some pathways have to be started in the nucleus, that is the nuclear receptors. Okay, due to the attachment of ligands or drug substance to the nuclear receptors, the peripheral proteins will pass through the nucleolus or nuclear membrane. So this is the important function of peripheral proteins. Now I think this may be more than enough. For next lecture, in the next lecture we are going to study about another topics. Till then, keep supporting us, keep watching our videos.